Hello everyone. Welcome to our first LinkedIn Live from Tribal Impact in 2023. It seems strange saying it. I think I've just about got used to saying it now. I'm not saying next year anymore, so we are in this year, 2023. So today is a bit of a special LinkedIn Live. I'm joined by two people rather than just the one. So I've got Peter Marshall here from Ericsson and Julia Dixon from Tribal Impact. She's one of our training and coaching superstars. So today's session is all about how Peter became a bit of a tech influencer. And also we've got Julia on the call to sort of explain a bit about his journey and how, from our perspective, we help Peter become a tech influencer, maybe by accident. So I'll hand over to Peter and ask him to do a little bit of an intro, and then Julia the same.
Yeah. So I'm Peter Marshall. I'm from Ericsson. I'm a part of what's called the Vision Lab. And my responsibility is to bring the vision to reality. So
I think we've got a bit of technical problems with Peter's connection there. Julia, do you want to just pop in and do an intro and hopefully we'll get Peter back?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Julia. I'm one of the digital strategists here at Tribal Impact, and I tend to specialise in coaching and training, or webinar delivery, etc. And I've been with the team since 2019. Gosh, time flies, doesn't it?
I know it does.
And Peter was one of the first people that I met from the Ericsson team back in, I think, 2020. So it's great to be here with him again.
And hopefully, I think we've got Peter back. So do you want to carry on with your intro, Peter?
I hope so. Am I back? What the hell?
You are.
So.
Yeah, so I'm a part of the Vision Lab within Ericsson. And over the last, God knows how many years, I've been asked to do public speaking, prototypes, university demonstrations. But the beautiful thing about my role now is to look broader and to bring stories to life. So what does that mean? It needs to mean you talk with a whole host of beautiful people to talk about beautiful things and make them come to life. And when you speak to people who are part of toddler labs or a Japanese pop star or a rugby player or somebody who works in a factory, you can gather so much information and you can really start thinking about what does that mean and how do you make that come to life. And when you have the whole kind of LinkedIn support behind that, you want to share it. And that's what I like to do, but only by accident.
That leads me into my first question, actually, because how did we get you into that place? So Julia, could you give me a bit of background on the program that we enrolled Peter on to?
Yeah, so this was going back in 2020. So Peter was part of a team of people who were getting ready for a big industry event. I think it's Mobile World Congress back in 2020. And as part of that process, Tribal was working with the team to look at their profiles on LinkedIn, look at how they'd be viewed by customers, to provide some sort of one-to-one support from a coaching point of view, to really move them along on their LinkedIn journey. So they were all at different stages, and it was very much tailored to them. And I had the joy of working with Peter as part of that process. So
I'm glad you said joy.
I did.
So you said that people were at different stages. Give us a bit of an explanation. So from what to what did you have to work with?
Oh, well, they were all doing different roles, which was nice. So, but they were all quite technical. And that's what's lovely, I think, about, working with the people in Ericsson. They are all very different, but they're very, very smart people, which is lovely. And so some of them were quite experienced on LinkedIn. Others were really at very early stage of their journey. So it was kind of looking at where they were at the moment and where they wanted to be, because not everyone, wants to be an influencer. And Peter's ended up there accidentally. But and so sort of really thinking about the size of their network, what their profile looked like, what message they wanted to get across, what sort of content they wanted to communicate at that point in time, and then thinking about how they could use their LinkedIn presence to build relationships with people in the industry, but also people, prospective customers as well. So that was what it's about, really.
And dare I ask, where was Peter on that scale?
Oh, he was my best student. They were all lovely.
Where was I on that scale?
Well, I think you've made strides forward. Should we put it that way?
Well, yeah. The only way
You're so diplomatic, Julia. I really do admire it. So, Peter, what did you think then when you were enrolled on this program in that lead up to MWC last in 2020?
I mean, always comes as a surprise. Peter, we want you to raise your game in terms of LinkedIn. Peter, we want to raise your game in terms of what you do from a visibility point of view. We want to make you a little bit more professional. And you always kind of think, well, what does that mean? What do I need to do? What's the gotcha in that discussion? There was no gotcha. There was kind of just open your mind, see what's possible, and see where it takes you. And Julia was just brilliant. I mean, she just said to me, "You need to do this. You need to do that. Is that okay? Fine." And then we had this kind of discussion. Well, can we do this? And can we do that? And could we expand in different areas? And that's what I like. I'm a born student, I guess. I've always wanted to learn, and I keep encouraging that. If you feel like you're in your comfort zone, then you're in the wrong place. You should always feel a bit uncomfortable. So by having the opportunity to learn how to get outside your comfort zone and tell people about how you get outside your comfort zone, brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. And there's just these little tips and tricks that you learn. And the thing that I really enjoyed is that the things that Julie's have told me, I kind of feel like a bit of a disciple. Well, by the way, you should realize that you should be able to do this on LinkedIn. And you don't realize you're doing it. But I mean, we had Billy a wee while ago, Julia. Billy wants to be a real good social media presence. And just by a few little tips and tricks that Julia shared with me that are kind of just inherent in me now. Oh, by the way, it's really good. I feel a bit of a teacher, which is always positive.
Well, that's good, because it means that you've obviously the learning has been embedded. If you're then taking that on forward, that's a really ideal thing to see. So, in terms of how you got started on LinkedIn, as Julia was very diplomatic in her answer, where would you have put yourself when you first started?
Oh, yeah, I was kind of new enough in infant school, maybe was going into junior school, but not quite. LinkedIn was one of those things that people were part of. It was a really good networking opportunity for somebody who used to do a lot of traveling, because I used to work for Vodafone at the time. It was a good opportunity just to bring in people that you met in Vodafone and met in forums. That's how I used it. And when I did something a little bit special in Vodafone, I kind of added to that. But when I got into the whole 5G journey and you were touching things with robots, you were doing the augmented reality, you were part of Alice in Wonderland, you thought, well, it would be rude not to share your passion and your energy about that kind of thing. But I didn't want to do it too much. I didn't want to make it too extensive. And then Julia said, well, actually, what's stopping you from adding a little bit there, adding a little bit there? So you kind of rounded some square edges off me, Julia, if I can may say that, about how I can use LinkedIn a little bit better. Not to come across as a preacher or as kind of pushing things. I'm doing it because I want to. And I think this is where it gets accidental. If it comes across as genuine and you're really quite excited about what you're sharing and why you're sharing it, people recognize that. They don't go, oh no, he's another blog about something which is adding a little bit more boring stuff. I was in an event and look at me looking at a picture. It's because I want to do it. It's because I want people to feel that actually this was exciting, and yes, it was interesting, and yes, we could do something with this.
I think that's a really good point, because people tend to start quite formally, don't they, on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
They sort of they feel they're saying, they're thinking a long time about what they write and how they write it. Whereas actually, once you get in the swing of it and you just start to be yourself and you just talk as if it's you talking, then that's when your audience really kind of gets it. And if you're talking about things you're passionate about, that passion comes over, doesn't it? And you can almost read that in someone's writing. So,
I mean, I think that's the important thing, is that when you look at my writing, it's probably full of grammatic errors. Okay, I apologize. But I do, what goes on in my mind is written down, and it's the way I would say things. So when you get asked by Ericsson sometimes, could you write this? I have to push back on some occasions. Well, that just doesn't sound like me. I want to make it feel like it's coming from me. It uses the reallys, it uses the so's, it uses the just that I use in standard language. And having that level of personalization in my LinkedIn is more valuable to me than anything else. It needs to feel like something like me. So when you meet me at an event, you go, now I get the connection between what Peter's written, the pictures he's made, and the character that he actually is.
And that does feel uncomfortable to start with, doesn't it? It's
Oh,
like,
bloody
you know,
hell, it
actually,
does.
yeah, actually putting yourself out there and being you, and thinking, what if people judge me? And that's why I think people have that reticence to start with, sort of let themselves go, don't they? It's like, you know, who am I going to be online? Well, you should just be yourself, but that's actually uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to the whole introvert discussion that opened
Yes.
this whole debate up. I always say that in Ericsson, there's a huge amount of introverts who have a hidden extrovert who want to talk about what they're really proud of, really excited about, and want to bring to life. So when you speak to some of these introverts at events or you meet them on meetings, I always challenge them and say, well, look, there's Peter Marshall talking about dinosaurs, robots, or augmented reality, etc. Why can't you do it? You know, what's stopping you to do that? And you won't believe the value that you'd get. You get people from around the world trying to connect to you. And there's some fantastic examples I could go through just to say what
I imagine. I've just wanted to just acknowledge that we've got lots of people already in. Welcome to the live. Some questions are coming through and some comments. I think Rachel's just said 100%, Peter, that authenticity is absolutely crucial. So that's a really nice comment there. And Sarah's also commented on your dog. He actually got up and turned himself around halfway through you talking just then. But he's not talking to us at least, but he's just making himself known.
he's looking after his ball at the moment.
So if he doesn't ask you to fetch it halfway through.
No, and I like what Sarah said there. Have you noticed a change in your role? Yes. And the beautiful thing about that question, Sarah, that I love, is that there are a number of people that I dread calling me or linking me, because it's always going to be an uncomfortable thing. Peter, we've seen you do A, B, and C. Peter, we love your post about this. Would you mind doing? And you have to say yes immediately. Yes, I would love to do that. Because it's just such an opportunity just to get involved in something new, something fresh, or in my case, share something with some people about something. And yes, having that visibility has allowed me to broaden my horizons, gain a lot of confidence, if I dare say that. Yeah, that people do reach out to me and ask me to be a part of things that I'd never expect. I mean, one of the most bonkers one was, we're doing a big event in the Tate Modern, Peter. Okay, we want you to represent 5G. Okay, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? We don't know. It's up to you. How long have we got? 2 weeks. Bloody love. No, but it was one of the best things ever, because somebody said to me, we've got 2 weeks to bring 5G to life. We're going to be in the Tate Modern in the middle of London. What are you going to do? It was just a fantastic thing, just to really brainstorm and bring all the kind of networking to life and all the creativity to life, and then talk about it. And when you're doing the talking in about LinkedIn, I was in the Wired thing at the Tate Modern. It was fantastic. And you get these people. You were in the Tate Modern, Peter Marshall, the man who studied chemistry in 1986.
What a journey. So it sounds like, actually, Peter, you might have been one of our perfect candidates for coaching. We know that isn't always the case. We often get people who aren't so interested in the topic, or maybe even so open and just saying yes to any opportunity. What would you say to someone who's maybe feeling a bit skeptical or maybe awkward about, social media and how they make that first step? I know you said about authenticity, but what would you say?
I think there's two things that you should think about. And I don't want to sound arrogant when I say this. You need to take it in nice, small, bite-sized steps. Just try something, see how it works. But the most important thing I've enjoyed about the whole LinkedIn journey I've been on so far, and the accidental experience I've had, is to reach out to people that you respect on LinkedIn, or people that you respect within your company or in your network, and say, I feel like I'm going to do this. What do you think about that? I'm going to do this. What do you think about that? And having that peer support gives you that extra level of conviction that, yes, what you're going to do on LinkedIn makes sense. So break it into nice little small chunks, see how you develop, but don't do it in isolation. It's quite a scary situation if you want to do something with presence. But if you can reach out to your peers and ask for their ideas to help with that, then it becomes quite a shared experience too.
Yeah,
I
and I
think
guess
Oh, so I was going to say, I think, and I would add to that really is if particularly if you are more introverted, and recognizing it will feel uncomfortable, is really to sort of focus on what value you can add and how you can help people. So I think if you focus more on the fact that actually by doing this, you're actually helping other people to discover things, or you're sharing information, you take the focus off yourself and, you know, looking inwards and start looking outwards instead. And I think that is quite a helpful thing to do. So, you know, who am I not to share this information? Because it might actually help someone. And if it helps someone, then that's really my job done. So I think that helps. And I always say progress, not perfection. Like, you know, none of us are perfect. None of my posts are perfect. Let's face it. You just learn a little bit more as you go, and you experiment, and you see what works for you, and you see what works for your network, and that's, you know, that's what it's about. Baby steps, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think in that baby step thing, you always have to challenge yourself that little bit more every single time.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
putting photos in, putting links in, putting the bullet points in. Yeah, should I really do that? Okay, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And there's a really good friend of mine called Chris Michaels, who's from the National Gallery. I don't know if anybody's following him, but he's doing something really quite unique. He made a New Year's resolution that every single day he's going to post. But what he's doing, which is absolutely fantastic from a LinkedIn learning perspective, every single week he's providing a summary of his journey for that week and what he's learned. And that's exactly what people like myself should do as well. We shouldn't just talk about what we're doing and how we're doing, but what we learn as well. Because if we can do that, and we can do it in an authentic, genuine way, like Chris has done, there's always going to be one or two things in there that somebody's going to pick up and go, "That's a very, very good point."
Yeah, I think that's really valid, isn't it? And I think that's the thing. If someone says to you sort of on day one, right, you're starting on LinkedIn, you never posted before, but we'd like you to do a live video, you'll go, oh my God, you know. Whereas if you take it a little bit of time, eventually you might want to get there. Some people never will, but you might actually want to get there. So then you learn new skills. Back to you being curious. You know, I'm really curious as a person. So trying out new things is really cool, isn't it? You know, seeing how far you can take it.
Yeah, another thing, I mean, you're saying about this guy, Chris, who's just committed to doing a post a day. I mean, that's a big time commitment. And that's another thing we hear often is time. How much time does it take? How much time would you say you spend on LinkedIn, Peter?
On a typical day?
Yeah.
Not that long, maybe half an hour, mainly to see what's going on in the world, just to kind of close my curiosity down. But I always try to find at least one thing to bridge with something else I'm doing, or to bridge with something else I know somebody else is doing. So if you ever to see me on a night, I'm watching TV, browsing through LinkedIn, oh, that's really interesting. That's got a link. And what I will do, I will send an email to myself. So the following morning, I will use that LinkedIn either for myself or for a colleague. But when it comes to myself posting, I don't have a routine, and I do that on purpose. I only do things that are important for me, or that I have a link to, or make a lot of sense to me. To post every day for me would be too much, I think. But to say that I've done an event, or doing something like this, or I've been to a university, or I've made an article or something that I've got a personal link to, then I will post, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, no. Another question actually from Sarah again. So she says she's heard feedback from technical experts in the IT industry that they're reluctant to share their knowledge to wider audiences on social for fear they're diluting their own professional value. What's your perspective on that, Peter?
No, I think everybody's quite unique and everybody's quite personal, but I don't think it'll dilute their professional value as well. It depends on the sentiment of how you're saying it. It depends on the angle of how you're coming across. If you say things with genuine passion, authenticity, and you're saying it based on fact, but also some inspirational elements to that, that mixture of authenticity, fact-based, and inspiration is absolutely, it's infectious. And if you are infectious as a technical expert, then the benefits of that, of being that kind of go-to person, will benefit you in no end, because people want to reach out to you and pick your brains and understand about it. You'll learn more from that. It's not just a giving exercise, it's a giving and receiving exercise in that discussion. And I think, I mean, if you think about my good friend, I'm name dropping all over the bloody place here, but my good friend Misha Dollar, he was the professor at King's but now a part of Ericsson. he's probably one of the most connected people I know, but he will read some of my LinkedIn posts and he will come back to me and say, I really like what you said there, but you've missed a point. You've missed a point A, B, and C. Perfect. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
that's really good.
I'm not perfect, but I want to learn. And if I can use LinkedIn as a learning exercise, you know, that's a real positive.
And
Yeah,
that's a
that's
brilliant
it.
example. So that's a brilliant example, isn't it? Because then he's adding more to the conversation and actually
Exactly.
showcasing his expertise. And you know, the whole logic of that. I'm just thinking, if you're sharing stuff on LinkedIn, you're giving people a reason to follow you, to find out more from you. So, and that's real value add to them, isn't it? And that you can't possibly share everything in your brain in a series of LinkedIn posts. There's always going to be more information up here, isn't there? So, it's just a great way to showcase what you do and to share that passion.
But I think that's another thing I've added into my LinkedIn's. I've always added a question. So what do you think?
Mm.
What would you think would happen? What would you do with 5G? What would you think 6G could happen? What would your vision be for 2030? Just by adding those questions in and getting a few comments into the discussion or connection that you would not think about adds value again. So you have to use LinkedIn to your advantage as well in that.
But that, I suppose, sort of coming back to that question again, is also, I mean, we hear quite a lot about, oh, well, I don't want to give away company secrets and things like that. But again, I think it's another challenge that we can probably dispel, is that you don't have to give away your company secrets and your posts on LinkedIn.
I mean, so for example, let me give you another fantastic example. Two of my loveliest, closest friends in the Ericsson research team, Ali and Natalia, who did holographic communications. I mean, they are the most passionate people about their subject. But when you first met them, they were slightly close. But I worked with them to help create an article. I want to bring it to life. You've done a really good research piece. Let's make it come to life. Let's put some videos in, etc. Nellie and Natalia just went to the next level. They created an own personal video to bring the article to life. They then presented the article on LinkedIn, and for us, it was one of the most successful LinkedIn posts we'd ever had, purely because of how Ali and Natalia brought it to life in their own genuine, non-corporate way. It really showed Ali and Natalia's passion for the role. It really showed how holographic comms was going to make a difference to industry and society, but it also showed what they wanted to get across was what Ericsson are doing in that space. So they're really, really positive to that. And when I saw them the last time in October and asked them, what else can we do? Could we do this, Peter? And just by saying that, I thought, perfect. You've gone from this kind of shrinking violet to this person that really wants to be very, very vocal and very passionate about their work. And it's not giving too much away. It's just giving them an insight, a teaser, what could be.
I think that's a really great point, isn't it, about your sort of user-generated content and actually people on LinkedIn wanting to see more of that authentic content rather than polished content. I mean, that's definitely the way things are going, isn't it? People speaking from the heart, you know, and perhaps looking a bit sort of rough around the edges with their mobile phone and things, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not all about promo videos.
Sometimes a phone video is much better than a polished somebody sitting in the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you done much of that then, Peter?
You know, Julie, that's the next uncomfortable situation. Thank you for saying that. But no, I mean, let's say my namesake, Peter Linder, is doing a lot on that case. And Peter Linder is just a natural for stuff like that. When I guess my little stigma is that my father, who was a steel worker, when he sees me on Ericsson.com or he sees me on YouTube, he uses some expletives to say what he thinks about me being on these channels. But you know, there's always that kind of resistance that, you know, there's a paternal figure that doesn't believe that his son is doing so much in the kind of a social media place. Maybe tomorrow, Julie.
I'm saying that because I'm sitting here thinking I must record another video. I haven't done one for a long time, so that's my guilt coming out as well.
I won't even dive into that. So I was going to say, so scaling activity then. So obviously the point in the program was to get you sort of getting connected with people before you went to MWC. So how would you say your network has changed sort of over the space of these last nearly 3 years?
Massively. I mean, it's really. And one of the proudest moments, which sounds a bit cheesy, is when somebody asked me to be a part of the B2B social media Trailblazer event.
Yeah, amazing.
And you were really, really okay. I'm more than happy to, but really, it didn't register. And I think that's when the trigger hits. Well, yeah, okay. When I do post, sometimes they hit really well, and sometimes they really make a big impact. So I have to recognize that, but I don't want to make too much of a fuss about that. And this is where the accidental bit comes in. Some of my success has purely been done by accident, something which I find really, really passionate about, and just post it. I mean, there's one beautiful one. I was a part of a STEM program with the King's School of Mathematics, and there's this mentee of mine called Nandita, who I'm still in contact with. She's not in the university now. We did a presentation to this big STEM forum, and it was just so rewarding. Me and this 16, 17-year-old girl were presenting on something which we were very passionate about, and we got a huge round of applause, and it was just one of those proud moments. So I just came back to the train, started typing away. Proudest moment of my life. So, in my year, picture of me and Nandita. It just went crazy. And those are the things that make a difference. But when you go back to your question, so what's changed, evolved? There's a real sense of confidence about reaching out. But my network has gone from just kind of ICT centric to much broader than that. I mean, you think about the Japanese pop star I spoke to, or the football player, or to the toy maker. I've got such a broad bunch of people that I contact or in contact with purely because of my presence on LinkedIn. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
And actually, sorry, I was going to say, and you've tripled the number of connections you've got since we, spoke in 2020s, and they're much more relevant to what you do. So that's a win-win, isn't it? It's about relevance. I'm not saying size. I'm saying relevance.
That's the critical thing, Julie. That I could do. I mean, I probably get about 40 or 50 requests every single week. But I only accept the ones that I think are relevant or valuable to me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to have this kind of cast of thousands following you. Some of them could be, I only want the people that I think I can add value to, or they can add value to me. I think that's an
quality,
important
not
thing.
quantity.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. If you want to learn, like you say, you want to learn from your network and the people you're connected to, you're only going to do that if you're connected to the right people. We see, lots of different companies that we work with where they're connected to lots of people within their company that they work in, but maybe not so much outside of that. And then they wonder why they're not really hearing anything else other than what maybe the company has to say.
One trick that Julia shared with me, which I always do, is that when you do the whole post, when you get these likes or whatever, comments, etc., and either second or third links to you, I do the kind of scam. I say, well, why do they want to like what I've done that don't really know me? And I will actually follow those people that I think actually they're relevant to me. So that's a nice little trick when you're doing a post. Don't just don't look at the number. Look at the kind of contributions to that number and then see what you can get from that. And if there is somebody in there that will make a difference to you, or you can make a difference to them, link to them.
Yeah, that's great tip. Thanks for sharing that one.
We're talking about likes. I was going to say, Julia, how long would you say it normally takes to start seeing results?
Oh yes. Well, it's not just hit one, social media post and away you go. Everything starts working from one thing. It does take a lot of time, and I think it is about consistency. It's about finding your voice and finding your message and being authentic. And it's going to be sort of probably at least 3 to 6 months before you start seeing some real impact. I think when you start noticing maybe people reaching out to you, or people, like you say, Peter, second degree connections commenting, and then you start looking at them, and then maybe you have a conversation offline. So I think you have got to appreciate you've got to be in it for the long term. Like anything, like any offline tactic as well, it takes time. It takes time to build relationships. That's what it's about, isn't it? So it takes time.
Yeah.
But I think there's another element to that discussion. It goes back to the introverts. Is that there's always an opportunity out there if you look for it. And if you're an introvert, you should be looking for those opportunities to do something with. If you don't look for those opportunities, you will never have that chance to shine. So there should always be that curiosity, and introvert people are curious people just as much as extrovert people. So if that curiosity can kind of trigger you in the LinkedIn world or the universe to find opportunities, then that's what you should do. And if there's an event or a comment option or something like that, use your curiosity to find the opportunities. And that's what drives me in LinkedIn. Oh, I like that. You won't believe the amount. There's a lady called Laura Boffey who's got the most bonkers glasses ever. Right? I did something on LinkedIn and she reached out to me. I just love what you said there, Peter. Can we connect? Yes. And then she said, could we have a call? Yes. Can I tell you about what I'm doing? Yes. And she's just, she's got the most creative mind ever. And she chose the opportunity. But if you ever get to meet her, I don't think she's the most extrovert individual. Wow. But she found the opportunity. Find the opportunity and get the courage to go to that next step and then to the next step and then to the next step.
Do you think maybe the word influencer kind of holds some people back then?
Yes.
Maybe that particularly in the introverted area where they think, actually, the word influence makes me think of Instagram influencers and it's not who I want to be, rather than actually just sharing their expertise and, being a technical expert.
Definitely. When I tell my 22-year-old and my 11-year-old sons, oh, I'm an influencer, don't be daft, Dad.
Be imagining you in bikinis on the front of boats.
I got or mankini, one of the two.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do a LinkedIn post. Anybody on this call me in a mankini on a video, whatever you say. Not even for £1,000. I'm not going to do
it. So you talk quite a lot about sort of your contacts and connections. How would you say you use LinkedIn and maybe your influencer status to sort of collaborate with colleagues across sort of the business and maybe outside of Ericsson as well?
Yeah, I do that. I mean, the Laura Boffey one is a brilliant one where she's reached out to me and we brought up, and I do that all the time. So every single week there must be 3, 4, 5 occasions where I will reach out through an email, through a LinkedIn post, through a message to learn something new about something I've seen. And that's really, really valuable. And when somebody says to me, where did you find that idea about this? Well, it's just by chance. So an accident again that I saw this in a LinkedIn post that really got my imagination going. So I reached out to them. And as a result of that, we're having a discussion about doing this or doing that or doing that. So again, it's that curiosity and the kind of accidental aspect of it, using the LinkedIn universe to find things that resonate with you. Just jump into there and to see what happens. Comes on that. But on the flip side of that, there are a growing number of people that say to me, Peter, I'm going to be posting in tomorrow or the day after. Would you mind just putting your little wrap around that to help with the discussion and build out the network even further? Absolutely. Do you want me to say anything in particular? No, just do what you say normally. And that's what gives me a sense of satisfaction as well, that they specifically reached out to me. And it's not always within Ericsson. Can you just add 2 or 3 lines on here about what you think this is important, or what you got from the event, or what you got from the article? That gives you a sense of reward. And when you think about that diluting discussion, that's completely reversing that argument, because people want your contribution. They want to hear your facts, figures, and kind of insights to what's going on.
And I think that's a really good point, because commenting is such an underutilized strategy, really, in terms of it is just like that mini post, isn't it? It's your comment is going to be in front of your network with the person who originated that original article. And obviously the original article get to see your comment as well. So it's kind of a win-win, isn't it? It's why wouldn't you want to do that?
I'm still aiming for, I had 30 likes on one comment kind of just before Christmas, which is bonkers, yeah. But now I'm aiming for 50. So now
not that you're competitive at all. I don't know.
So we're getting close to the end now. So my last question to both of you, we haven't got any more questions in the audience. So if you have got a question that you want to ask Peter, now's your chance to do it before we run out of time. So what would you say is one key takeaway you can leave our audience with today as we approach sort of the second month in 2023?
Do you want to go first, Pete, or do you want me to? Do you want to go?
Ladies first, Julie. I've spoken far too much.
I would say focus on being you. Bear in mind on LinkedIn that probably there's less than 5% of people are actually posting. Most people aren't consuming there. So it's a great place. You've got a great opportunity to be you and to talk about things you want to talk about, and stay in that zone, stay in the zone of what's important to you to talk about. So you build that reputation of being known for talking about X and Y, and that gives people a reason to follow you. But mainly be you.
Peter, then.
I just want to say something maybe a little bit cheesy, but it's what drives me. You need to be bold, you need to be courageous, just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Just never, if you don't stretch yourself that little bit more, you're never going to know what happens. And that's what LinkedIn's been for me in the whole influencer journey, if I can call myself an influencer without my mankini on.
I will never get that image out of my head. That's my fault for saying it.
That's what it's been. It's about being bold, being a little bit courageous, and just stretching what I do normally. And I think every person can do that. It's just having that courage.
Although Donna's asked an interesting question there, saying, are people worried about reputational risk and how this is managed? So do you need to bear that in mind, Peter, even if you are being bold?
Yes, but there's an element of how do you say realism in this discussion, because if you're going to put stuff on LinkedIn, you don't do it just for LinkedIn's sake. You do it for the right reason. It goes back to your authenticity, and if you're authentic, genuine, passionate, regular, supportive, etc., that should just do nothing more but improve your reputation as an individual. But if you just put stuff on LinkedIn for LinkedIn's sake, and it's all about blah, 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 corporate, lots of hashtags, lots of lovely pictures of me outside the Canary Wharf or whatever it is, that doesn't work. And that kind of just dilutes the whole substance of who you are. And that's where my sons laugh at me about being an influencer. Yeah. When you don't do the whole pouting thing, Dad, in front of a camera.
In the mankini.
We Snapchat filters. Oh, nice comment from Charlotte there. She just said, great advice. Thank you all.
I love you, Charlotte.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Well, that's everything. I don't know if there's anything that you've got to ask Julia. Julia had a question, because I know you've been diving in.
I can't see anything more of my questions there. No, just what a delight. Just what a delight it is to hear you again, Peter. And I look forward to keeping, listening into what else you're going to do in the future.
You nearly said keeping me on my toes there.
Like keeping you on my mind.
Well, we're now going to be looking out for your video, Peter.
We are. I'm looking forward to the next video.
You've said it out loud and it's been recorded. So now you're really going to have to do it.
Next week, okay? I'm going to do a video.
Next week. Next week. That's it. You've got to have.
Stay tuned.
Not in my mankini, though.
No. Oh, man.
Oh dear.
So on that note then, thank you ever so much for everyone for joining us. We're back with our usual weekly schedule as of from this week. So next week, the 31st of January, I might have got that wrong, might even be the 1st of February. I think it's next Wednesday. We've got Justina from Tribal, and she's joined by Nadia Vieira, I hope I've said her name right. She's actually from LinkedIn. They're talking about how to build online communities, taking some lessons learned from the Sales Navigator community. So that will be an interesting one. So we hope to see you there. Thanks ever so much for joining us. And have a good rest of the day, everyone.